All right, today is October 11th. We have rum and real estate today. We missed last week's because I was still fighting with Facebook about my last post regarding the St. George vote. The actual election is tomorrow. However, when I did the video and I wanted to boost it for $10, they told me that I couldn't do that because it talked about social issues. So it took me a week for them to get it to finally go through. I posted it on Monday, I think. But I wanted to get one out today. The actual election's tomorrow, but today we're not talking about that. Today, I have asked a quick question this morning about a topic to talk about. And there was a spirited discussion between my friend Robert and Jonathan about earnest money deposits. And if they're, are they pointless in real estate? I actually do have a couple of thoughts on this as pertains to Louisiana real estate. For today, our rum that we have is a quick story. I went to Rouse's to go get some kebabs for the game last week, and I needed some more rums. I had said I'd run out, so they had a new one at Rouse's, and it's called Lyon. And they had two of these. They had a dark one and they had a clear one. And I said, cool. I'll always try the new rum. It was on the top shelf. It was $36. It's made in St. Michael's, Maryland. Now, I don't know about you, but when I think of rum, I don't think of Maryland. As a PSA for this one, as I take a sip, it's not that good. So for the first time, I bought something that was actually kind of bad. I'm drinking it right now because I've diluted it a lot, and I paid $36 for it. So we're gonna drink it. The interesting thing about this rum is it's a micro distillery, craft distillery in the Chesapeake Bay, and it was founded in 2013. So this is probably the youngest distillery I've at least tasted anyway. And they have a goal to create distinctively American spirits, working to define the category of new American rum while experimenting with obscure and varied finishes. I'm telling you guys, that last sentence is what this is, because this is an obscure taste. It's a varied finish, and I can get it down because I don't know, like I said, I can't let it go to waste. I do mix it with a Coke when I can. But if this is what American-made rum is going to be in the future, I really don't want any part of it. I'll stick with Bayou. Of course, as you know, I've mentioned that before. Bayou being from Lackawanna, Louisiana. I don't know what it is about how they distill sugarcane here, but that's good. It's officially America's rum. They have a trademark for it. And I'll stick with that when it comes to American rums. That was the other thing. I had a rum from Texas once that was disgusting as well. I actually gave it to my brother to punk him in Florida. So I don't have that one anymore, and I will not review it. It's actually not, it's probably worse than this. But anyway, to bad rum, but to real estate and to LSU, let's talk about deposits. In Louisiana, the purchase contracts are very buyer friendly. There's so many terms that are built into the contracts that allow a buyer to pretty much, for whatever reason, get out of a deal, especially during that due diligence period. I used to joke about it, but then it actually happened where literally a client's mom and them just said, we don't want you to buy the house. And it was on the last day of the inspection period, and boom, they just walked away. The deposit is in effect I call it like a good faith deposit. It's what we used to call it back in the day. You give the deposit, you have a contract, you say, I'm going to give you X dollars, we'll say $500 to the seller to hold as a deposit towards the closing and get used towards closing. And the way the contracts are written, that if the buyer defaults on a contract, the seller has the right to keep this deposit as liquidated damages, for lack of a better term. The problem is that the amount of ways that a contract can be voided are so many, even after the inspection period, especially a financed sale, that I kind of find them almost pointless. If you have a financed sale and you're borrowing 97% of a deal, and 4 days before everyone wants to close, and 4 days for the contract, you lose your job, or say the financing doesn't go through, the contract is void, and it states the deposit is to be returned to the buyer. The only way I have seen a deposit be kept in 10 years is on a cash deal where there's no other stipulations. I mean, if you're outside the closing date, if you're outside the inspection due diligence period, and you just don't show up to closing, yeah, the seller is going to keep the deposit because he's already got it. However, the other remedy that is available to sellers when it comes to deposits is you can sue them for you can either sue them for specific performance, which means they can make you buy the house, or damages in the amount of 10% of the purchase price. I get that. The reality is no one's going to go through that depending on the price. If you're talking about a couple $1 million property, yes. You're talking about a $220,000 house and someone doesn't show up and you have a $500 deposit, you can keep that, or you can sue them, because and really, if you went through that much trouble for $500 to keep, you've spent more in your time to do that. Problem is suing someone to do that is not cost effective, and it's difficult to do. And really, in some of my cases, I'll just negotiate, in some cases, either to not have the deposit even delivered until after inspection period, or if I get a contract on one of my listings that doesn't have a deposit, I just tell my seller, listen, short of them walking away just for no reason, they're going to get this back if their financing doesn't go through, which really is the big out. I mean, you can get denied your loan for whatever reason. You can probably concoct a reason to get out of a contract and blame it on financing. I had one where a gift fund was not going, a parent was gifting their child some money as the down payment. Well, the parent decided they didn't want to give the money to the son anymore 2 days before closing. And deal was off. And so my seller got, and because of that, because the financing was based on that down payment, that's a financing contingency, falls through, seller has to give the $1,000 deposit back. Were they pissed? Yes. But by the letter of the contract and the law, trying to fight that was not going to be something that you'd really want to get into and probably lose anyway. With the conversations that had between, oh, hi, Dana. Yes, those were terrible parents. I don't know the situation about what happened to those parents, why they didn't even tell me. They just told me that the kid told me, I don't have the money anymore, my parents won't give it to me, and I can't close. And as an agent, I have to do my client's bidding. Where was I going with this? The two people that were discussing this on my Facebook page, one was a broker. So he has a very different view of the deposits because he probably deals with it every day. And he mentioned that, a lot of contracts come through a brokerage, and the first question, if something goes squirrely, is, do we have a deposit? So I can understand where he has a different view of how this works from a brokerage standpoint. But if I'm talking about just a client and a contract transactionally, more times than not, the deposit really is kind of the afterthought of the deal, because many of residential sales that I do are financed. And I know personally, I do my homework with my clients before that. If we get under contract, we are 98% sure that we're going to close on the deal, unless parents show up and just not give them money. So with that, the question I pose, are deposits pointless? They're not pointless. I think it depends on the transaction that you're working with. Large transactions, lots of interested parties, absolutely, because the more moving parts you have, say like in a commercial deal, you need the seller and the buyer need as many protections as they can to make sure everyone plays nicely to finish the deal. For for some of these smaller houses, 160,000 to even up to even new construction. Right now, even these big new construction companies, they don't even take a deposit. I think DSLD, I think they went with D.R. Horton, they wanted $50. Okay, so if a buyer walked away, they're out $50. The solution that was proposed by the broker was that deposits just need to be more. You have to have, if you want to make the deposit sting to make people not walk away for whatever reason, they have to be worth something to sting that person if they walk away and they lose it. Problem is, in residential real estate, when you're talking about 97% financing, 100% financing, 104% financing, the clients don't have cash on hand anyway. So to even get $1,000 out of someone to put up in a deposit in an account that's ready to be used to close, some of the times that's not even possible. That's just the environment we live in when it comes to financing for mortgages these days. And right after 2009, when the market tanked, you didn't find many of these programs with these very low down payments outside of rural development, 100%. But now we're starting to see more and more down payment assistance programs, grants, or say second mortgages that are getting rolled in. So you're starting to get a lot more people that may not have cash on hand to put up a $2,500 deposit for a house. So there's a balancing act there. You can ask people for more of a deposit, but then you're going to end up with less qualified buyers that can even do that. And so the risk is, again, on the seller to accept a deal without a high deposit, knowing that there is a possibility that it could fall through. However, if the agents do their job and qualify their candidates properly, and one thing I like to make sure is I have a good relationship with the agents that I'm working with. And so we use that relationship to ease everybody's mind on a deal that it's going to go through if there's no deposit or even a very small one. That's my thoughts on deposits. If you guys have any other questions about how they work, you can always text me, call me. I'm always here. Again, this is the rum of the day, but it's going to be the last rum for this rum for today. For the game tomorrow, I'm going to be drinking something much nicer than this. So stay away from this. If you see a rum that I've never heard of, let me know. Text it to me, message it to me. I'll definitely give it a shot, and I'll do a review of it here. Talk to you guys later. If I can end this video, it'd be great. There you go.